Just want to take this moment to fully address in video format this perception that exists of me that I steal roles from dark-skinned women. I've spoken about it a lot already, but mostly in print interviews. And the realization that I should have come to a lot more quickly was that nobody's trying to read all that, ever. So I'm hoping that with this, at least a feeling of acknowledgement can be achieved. I've been through a lot of shit, y'all. Like, this year was mostly defined for me, honestly, by contending with what it felt like to receive racist death threats just for existing in the Star Wars universe. And that was a really difficult thing for me to move through. But honestly, it feels so much more painful for me to feel like I'm at odds with my own community. I just want everybody to know that this is important to me, that I think about it with every choice that I make, that I would never navigate my career blindly and ignorantly, not thinking about my skin tone or the space that I occupy. And I would never go after a role that I didn't feel like it was right for me to chase, that I want to see all skin tones represented in media. I know that colorism is an insidious system that impacts every single facet of entertainment just relentlessly. I also just have to let go at the end of the day of people knowing what my intention is or who I am, but at the very least I can speak to where this stems from and provide some clarification there. Really, it goes back to my work in The Hate U Give. I think most people online have seen an image of me next to this book cover, and they've immediately assumed she's trying to snatch up roles from places that she shouldn't. The process behind The Hate U Give was so interesting because Angie's manuscript was so good that before the book was even published, they started circulating the manuscript around agencies. Studios started grabbing at the opportunity to adapt it, turn it into a movie. So after the studio started packaging it, they asked Angie Thomas, the novelist, I love you, Angie, who are you interested in for this role? And Angie said that she was interested in me. Now, mind you, this was at a point in time where I was a youth. I was active on the streets online. This is before y'all completely run me off of Twitter. I'm not calling it X, fuck that man. But I was posting fervently as a teenager about the things that I believed in, and I was engaging in conversation a lot. I was talking about Black Lives Matter. I was talking about cultural appropriation. I was talking about police brutality. And so Angie was aware that my spirit was in alignment with this project. And so they brought me in for a director session, and I booked the job. We were already so deep in that process when the book was published and this book cover was chosen. When the book cover was chosen, I honestly didn't even think that much of it. I was just like, wow, what a beautiful illustration that encapsulates the spirit of this piece of work. This was actually the book cover that was chosen in the UK. And then this is how Star is described in the book, as having medium brown complexion. So if you were to Pantone color chart it and say that's the shade that Star should be, I would probably honestly take a gander somewhere in between this complexion and this complexion, something like that. Or you might interpret it differently. That's the thing about interpretive language. And honestly, what I feel like is coming up again with this situation with Children of Blood and Bone. When I saw the casting call come into my inbox for Children of Blood and Bone, I was so much hype because these stories are so rare to come across. First thing that I did was look up a picture of the character. This was the first thing that I saw on the Wikipedia page. And I said, hold up. I was so excited to see that there was this depiction of this character that I could potentially be perfectly suited for. When I read the novel, I read this story about this kingdom where magical people who are described as having darker skin are oppressed for their magical capabilities, and people who look more like me are the ruling class and the oppressors. And so I thought to myself, not only do I fit this character description, but my skin tone actually serves the story in supporting the allegory about colorism and oppression. I went through the audition process. It was a very challenging one. I flew out to LA for the screen test, and then I waited some more, and I got the phone call that I had booked it, and I flipped out. And then I had the opportunity to meet Tommy, the novelist, for the first time, and we met up for dinner. First off, she's gorgeous and incredible. You would just be shook meeting her, point blank, period. But then she goes, Amandla, I want you to know that when you were a little girl and you were cast as Rue in the Hunger Games, and you had these racist remarks thrown at you because people said that Rue's death wouldn't be as sad because you're a black girl, that inspired me to write this series so that black girls like you and black girls of all shades could have a story written about them. Casting announcement came out. I went back to the Wikipedia page and I said, hold up now, y'all not putting that much effort to try to catch me out. It's a psyop at this point. Now, the first time that Amari is described in the book, the way that I interpreted this when I read it was this is an incredibly colorist society that these royals exist in, and Amari's mother is lighter than her, comparatively. I think I read it that way because of language that I kept reading afterwards also, like the girl's copper skin and thick robes scream of noble blood. She's also described as having oak brown skin, and in descriptions of characters with oak brown skin stands out against the darker chestnut and mahogany hues of the villagers. So I felt like I could read myself in that language. But I also felt like what was so beautiful was that this was a story about two girls who were so different from each other. And that difference had isolated them from each other and given them preconceived notions about each other, but they had to overcome that difference in order to love each other. And for the past several months, that's what I found in all the fan art that I've researched. It's a story of difference. But if you envisioned Amari differently, I think that's a beautiful thing as well. I think that that is the power of interpretation and of literature, that we're able to take these words and imbue them with our own meaning and our own experience and have them reflect still, at the end of the day, our shared humanity.